World marvelled at the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympics. Countries have sent their teams to compete in this global event, which brings various sporting codes together. But little is said about the history of the Olympics and how discriminatory it was against black people. The history of some of the first African athletes to participate in the Olympics remains largely unknown. To shine the spotlight on African athletes and their participation in the Olympics, we're joined by Professor Francois Cleopas, sports historian from the Sports Science Department of Stellenbosch University. Prof, very good afternoon. Appreciate your time. Now, let's talk about some individuals, black individuals, who are suggested to have been amongst the first to participate in the Olympics way back in 1904. I think it was Ian Mashiane and Lin Tau.
Yes. So we know that in 1899 to 1902, there was the Anglo-Boer War, and towards the end of 1904, a certain circus entrepreneur, Frank Phillips, took a troupe of people that came from the Anglo-Boer War to the St. Louis Games, and amongst them were these two people you spoke about now, and he entered them. Now I'm not sure whether he entered them or whether they entered themselves, but they entered into the 1904 Olympic marathon, making it the first time that somebody from the African continent competed in the Olympic Games.
Now, we talk about racism now, but let's talk about racism in 1904 and just what it is that these two individuals would have been subjected to in participating or gaining entry into this race.
Yes. So it was a very terrible experience for them. They went there with the idea that they were going to make money. They were part of the troupe that possibly carried messages for General Pitt during the Anglo-Boer War. And when they came there, they were also subjected to be part of what was known as the anthropological days. It was a kind of display event that happened before the official Olympics started. And they were put up to competing events like throwing stones at one another. It was called the freak shows, and they were subjected to that. Then also, when the Olympic Games was finished, Frank Phillips did not make the expected profit that he thought that he was going to make, and he came back home to Cape Town, and he just left these people there. So up until today, we don't know what happened to them after the 1904 Games.
Now, you've obviously done a lot of research around racism in the Olympics and much of its history. Just walk us through how the process of inclusivity has evolved over the last century and a bit.
Yes, so the Olympic Games of 1904 was very much different to the Games of 2024, although there is still very much some things that are still the same. But 1904 was the period of eugenics and the period of social Darwinism, where in particular black people were portrayed as being of an intellectually inferior mind, but being physically superior at times. And if you look at the research that was done on these two people in the 21st and in the late 20th century, how they are portrayed. They are portrayed as being known for having extra stamina. They are portrayed as being known for being able to withstand harsh conditions. So this is a kind of language that has survived in today's work from around 1904. So what historians like myself try to do, and we do claim ourselves to be progressive historians, is to retell the story in a decolonial way. We try to find out who were these people, what did they experience, and to give them a real voice.
So let's touch a little bit now on what role historians such as yourselves play in telling this narrative, because such information only seems to appear just before the Olympics, but it has a huge impact. In fact, it has the history in itself, I suppose, is an integral part to how the Olympics have evolved over time. At what point would you say we got to a stage where people of colour were recognised as equals at the Olympics, and just how much work did it take to get to that stage?
Okay, if we say that we have come to a stage where people of color are given equal recognition, that statement is debatable. The African continent, it still lags behind in physical resources. It still lacks the kind of material resources which many of the northern hemisphere nations has. And that limits the African continent's proper participation in the games. There's no equality also when it comes to the issue of gender. Remember, for the first 3 or 4 Olympic games, there were no females. And it took a long time for them to get to the stage where they can actually participate. And in the very beginning, they were only allowed to participate in the 100 and 200 and the 400 meters. It was thought that the 800 and the 1,500 meters will be too strenuous for the female body. So we still don't have a stage where we can claim that people from the African continent is on the same level. But we have made progress, and I hope that going forward we will be continuing to make more.
Professor, there's always a question of how do you address and rectify historical prejudices in the Olympics and other international sports. Can you ever reach a stage where you come up with a balance of some sort? Is there willingness on the other side to rectify these issues?
Yes, that's a very difficult thing to give a reply to answer to. We know that International Olympic Committee, they react to world conditions. So when this country was banned from the Olympic Games, the IOC went out of its way to find ways to bring the white South African team back into the Olympics. We also can also see how treatment is given to athletes from Palestine, from different parts of the world where there is trouble. So, from the International Olympic Committee, they coming forward to facilitate change has always been very slow. What we need is people on the ground to fight for change in local society, to fight for school sport, to fight for physical education to come back, so that the masses can have sport. And once your masses have got sport, then you can start looking at picking your elite sports people for world championships and for Olympics. But as it is right now, sport for the Olympics is about those who can afford it, those who have gone to the very well-to-do schools, those who have gone to the sport academies and have received the best training because they can afford to pay.
All right, that's where we'll leave that conversation. Professor Francois Cleopas, sports historian from the Sports Science Department at Stellenbosch University, unpacking for us the history of the Olympics, particularly where the first black participants, South African participants, are concerned, that were Jan Mashani and Len Tau in the 1904 Olympics. Appreciate your time. Health Minister